You're listening to Keeping Up with the Knights, a podcast for the faculty and staff at Steele High School, allowing them to connect outside of the classroom. Teacher, coach, mentor, and speaker Michael Herrera, a past District Teacher of the Year, will sit down with fellow teachers and bring their stories to life. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these stories as they unfold on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights.
Today, I'll be speaking with Courtney Matthews, an English teacher for the past 15 years here at Steele High School. She is also our student council sponsor, and she does a fantastic job of creating and maintaining a culture of togetherness with the staff as well as students. We talked about her upbringing and educational journey as a student as well as a teacher. She has amazing insight into our world of education, and it was my pleasure to sit and talk with her. Please help me welcome Courtney Matthews on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me on Keeping Up with the Knights. As we've kind of talked about before, this is just a teacher podcast. It's a podcast only for Steele Knights. And the idea came about for us as a faculty. I think we're a pretty tight-knit group of people. You've been here now for 16 years, and I've now been here for 15 years. But we've got some teachers and people that walk the halls that we may know their face, but we don't know their name.
Very true.
And if we don't know their name, we don't know their story. But if we can connect on a different level, as opposed to just going to faculty meetings and seeing each other once in a while, I felt really that this was a place for us to kind of get to know each other on a different level. I don't know who our audience is going to be. I don't know how many teachers are going to listen. But, you know, selfishly, it's kind of for me, too, to get to know people that I work with. So I hope that over time through these interviews, people will start listening. But thank you, Courtney Matthews, for being on this podcast.
Happy to do it. Very happy.
All right. So for the first part, much like a lot of teachers have some kind of like bell ringer or warm up. So this part of the podcast I just call Bellringers. So part of the Bellringers is I'm going to rapid fire 5 questions to you, and then you'll do the same for me before we actually get started today. So Here we go. Keep it very simple. If you could choose a vacation anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I would go to Norway, Scandinavia.
Have you been there before?
I have not, but my family is from there. My maiden name's Eriksson, so we've got some Scandinavian, Swedish roots. My grandmother was born in Norway. I think it'd be a cool area to go to.
All right, very good. All right, so now it has to be a current movie, not current as in like it came out today, but like any movie of all time. If Courtney Matthews could star in that movie, what movie would that be?
Oh my gracious! Can I choose like a Disney movie?
Yeah, I don't care what you.
I love like it's gonna sound so like immature sounding, but like I love like Tangled, and I love Brave. I love these movies of like female empowerment, and those are cool. So like I love the Disney stories where the girls are doing something sort of out of their comfort zone. So
you would want to be a cartoon character.
I think I'd be a decent cartoon character. Yeah, I think I'd be all right at it.
All right.
But the storylines are so unrealistic. I think that's kind of why I like them. So yeah.
I got you. All right. What is something that no one really knows about you that you would like them to know?
Okay. I would say that I am an extroverted introvert. I'm very much a homebody. I would rather not be social, but when I'm put in a situation, I love being around people and talking and enjoying myself. But I would curl up on the couch any day of the week. But that seems weird. I know because I'm involved in a lot of social school events, and I put a lot of these big events on that people might not know that I'm actually very much a homebody.
You know what? That's why I love this podcast, because like I would have never known that about you because of how social you are, how everybody gravitates towards you, whether it's students or faculty. But I like to say this, that I'm actually the same.
Yeah.
I'm very social on the outside. I mean, think about it. I'm doing a podcast, right?
Right.
But like on the inside, like socially around people that I don't know, I'm just kind of like, it takes me a long time to kind of embed into those conversations in those groups. So
I have a hard time going to a new situation.
Yes.
I have a really hard time going to a new situation. Yeah.
Very good. All right. If you were not a teacher, what profession would Courtney Matthews be doing?
Um, Something. I love like boutiques and little shops. I'd like to do something where like I'd own a boutique, or I could be like a buyer. I like unusual things. I like eclectic stuff. So I think I'd be pretty good at finding unusual things, places, and selling them. I don't know the story of them. I'm not like an antiques person, but I like unusual things. So I think I'd like to own or run a boutique or shop for a boutique.
I got you. So,
Yeah.
so in other words, after you retire, look for you in green. All right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And my last question for you is, man, COVID has really hit all of us, right? So starting from spring break, like all of us feel like we're on COVID break. There was never really a spring break. There was never really a summer break.
Right.
It's just COVID break. And we're kind of even experiencing it now, right? Like we're in our classrooms and there's nobody in our classrooms, right? So what is something since spring break till now that maybe you've either learned about yourself or that you started again, like an old hobby that you brought back?
I thought I would use my time more wisely. That's what I learned about myself. Like I thought I would learn a new craft, a new art. I thought I would refinish furniture. I thought I would catch up on all the books that I wanted to read, but I didn't. I was still full-fledged teaching all the way through the end with my dual credit classes. We were all full-fledged teaching, but like I had a lot of grades I had to do there. So then when summer hit, I think I just called summer, and I didn't think of it as a way to regroup. And I really wish I had. Like that is one, I think, regret I'll look back on. I loved my family time. It was amazing. I loved being with my kids, all of that. But I really wish I had maybe done more me growth, right? Even if it was just reorganizing something. I just didn't, I didn't do it like I thought I would. I was disappointed in myself for that part of it.
Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. You're not disappointed in yourself.
It's all right.
But, well, thank you for sharing. Now it's your turn.
Okay, well, and we have a couple repeated ones, but okay, that's all right. So if you could have any superpower that you could possibly want, what would it be?
Fly.
Just as simple as that.
Simple as that. Like, I just think it's so cool to, like, I don't know, just go somewhere really fast, but also like not be in a plane. Like, I just think it's so cool to be able to fly. I think that also comes from maybe some childhood dreams where I really felt like I was legit flying. It's one of those like lucid dreams, you know?
Right.
But I think that'd be cool to fly.
I think it'd be amazing. Okay, I also have, what is one place, if there was no money involved, you could just go, what travel location would you go to?
So I had a podcast with Becky Williams. And so like she asked me that question and I answered Santorini. So I don't want to go down that route again.
Okay.
Because if people are listening to this, they're like, okay, here's that same story again. So it's okay. Where else would I like to go? One thing that people probably don't really know about me is I've got my hippie side and I enjoy like quiet, tranquil, serene. I used to be a massage therapist. So like, I really just love peace and quiet. And so something about, like Switzerland, like just being in the Alps, but being in a cabin and not going anywhere. Right. And just enjoying the scenery would be something that I would do, or even like a, Japan or some like those islands, just one of those like Fiji kind of just, not the hustle and bustle, but the quiet and peaceful places. Yeah.
So mountains or the beach, doesn't matter, just as long as it's a quiet.
If it's a beach, I don't want to go to like spring break Cancun. Like I want to be like on a beach where no one else is.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, what color appears the most in your house?
What a great question.
I had like further questions beyond that, like, and what do you think that means about you?
There's a such thing as color therapy, by the way.
I know.
Yes. Appears most. I hate to say this, man, but like most of my house, and now that I've been in there for 7 years, it's kind of like, I don't like it, but it's like that dark brown. So like our concrete floors are stained dark brown. Our furniture was dark brown. Our furniture, like our built-in cabinets and our kitchen cabinets, everything is stained dark brown. And now we look back and we hate it. But the other color would be blue. My wife and I really like blue. So we got
like accents of blue.
Accents of blue, and that comes from Greece, actually. So we've got some Greek things in our house, and we went to Santorini, so we love the blue and white combination.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. If you could have any sort of unconventional pet, what would you have?
Unconventional.
Like not a dog or cat or rabbit or hamster, but like any sort of unconventional pet.
A monkey?
That wouldn't cause damage to your house if you had it. How about that? Like my son, he was like, I could have a rhinoceros. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So
I think it would be a monkey. I think that comes from watching Friends.
I know.
Marcel.
They'll hang out with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have a pet monkey named Marcel, like Friends.
Yeah. That'd be very cool. Very cool. Other than basketball, what is your favorite sport to watch or partake in?
Ooh, because that's different.
That's true. That is two different questions, but
no, it's a toss-up for me because I equally enjoy golf and running. I'm an avid runner.
You are.
But it's hard to watch running unless it's the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So I can't watch running on TV like I can watch golf every weekend. So for me, it's kind of a toss-up for two different reasons. I love running, but golf is, yeah.
I would never watch a marathon voluntarily, but I'll watch golf all afternoon. Like I have no problem watching that. So,
yeah.
All right. That was the end of my 5 questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get right into this. So I'm going to ask you, I've got about 10 questions on my list, but we'll just kind of see where it goes here. Okay. Again, the purpose behind this podcast is to allow people to get to know us, right? And more so you than I. So people may not know Courtney Matthews. Maybe they're a brand new teacher, or maybe they've been here a few years. They know Courtney Matthews and student council and English and what you do for our campus, but they may not know your story. So let's just start by keeping it simple. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
I grew up in Plano, Texas, which is north of Dallas. I had a really nice childhood. I had 2 brothers. My parents, we stayed in the same house for 20 years. I never moved. I went to school with the same people from kindergarten through my senior year. And then after that, I had a chance, my dad was a salesman. And so I got to travel a lot, with him. When he would go off on sales calls. And so I'd get to go traveling. I'd get to go like snow skiing and get to go to the beach and go. So I had a great childhood. I had no complaints. And then I went to, do I go beyond? I went off to college.
Let's go with just childhood now. So like where you went to elementary school, middle school, high school.
Oh goodness. Okay. So I went to Harrington Elementary, which was right down the road from me. And then we, to Carpenter Middle School, which was, I could ride my bike there, but I think I carpooled. Then in Plano, they actually separate high school in 9th and 10th grade and 11th and 12th grade. So you have a high school, then you have a senior high. So high school, I went to a school called Clark High School. And then for senior high, I went to Plano East Senior High, graduated with around 900 students. Now Plano has, I think, 3 high schools. That area up there has grown, if anyone's familiar with
So they didn't have Plano West at the time, did they?
Do what?
They didn't have Plano West at the time.
Plano West didn't exist then. There was Plano and Plano East. It took me about 15, 20 minutes to get to school. I was right there on that dividing line. So, but I again, loved it. I was involved in, I did some sports growing up. I ran track through like 8th grade. Played volleyball through 10th grade. I played the viola from 6th grade through my senior year, then actually got a scholarship to play the viola at Texas Lutheran. So played the viola from my 6th grade year through my senior year of college, which most people probably wouldn't know about me. Actually.
No, I never knew.
No. I've actually not played the viola since after my senior year of college. So clearly it wasn't something that I was driven to go out and do. I don't have like a musical mind. I appreciate music, but I don't have a musical mind. I could only read my clef. I could not, I didn't pick up the piano. I didn't do anything else. So, yeah.
Very cool. So let's go ahead and talk about college. So where did you go to college? And then maybe share some experiences that have stood with you over the years about those college. And it can be socially, it can be academically, just wherever you want to go with it.
When I applied for colleges, I applied to a kind of smaller private schools, TLU, Southwestern, Trinity, Baylor, was accepted into all of them. And my parents went to TLU, so I'd been there before. And when I got a pretty decent scholarship to go there. And so I went to Texas Lutheran. And I didn't know what I was going to major in when I started. I think I was going to do history, was pretty certain I was going to do something with education, but wasn't really certain. It wasn't like I had this idea in my mind what I was going to become and where I was going to go. But I loved it. It's a very small school. When my students now ask me about TLU, they're deciding between large universities and small universities. And if you take the money equation out, obviously, I talked to them about small class sizes. I think that's one of my big take backs from TLU. There was times where I sat across a table with 4 other students and the professor at the end of the table. There was nowhere to hide. If you didn't do your work and didn't know your information, you were kind of sunk. So I had real small classes. I remember I worked in the education building, like stapling papers and making photocopies, so many hours a week. And I would watch the business professor walk into the office and call a student, why aren't you here? You don't get that at large universities.
Right.
And so I think that's one thing that I loved about TLU. It's a very close-knit group. Everybody knows everybody else, which can always be good or bad depending on your business. But it also meant that socially you kind of knew everyone else. It was a community. I figure some of our best friends that we still hang out with today are from TLU 21, 22 years ago. Our kids all are growing up together. It's just such a small, close knit. The professors challenged you. I loved it. I loved the TLU experience. Then after that, I went straight from TLU to get my master's degree at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. And so I was living in Sugar Land at the time, was married. And I went off, and it took me a few years, but I have my master's degree in literature from the University of Houston, Clear Lake. I don't have any real strong connections to there. I was driving there, going to class, driving home. I never went to any sort of, social events or anything like that. But that's kind of my education story.
So at what point during your college years or afterwards, like what kind of, talk about your journey into becoming a teacher, okay? And then maybe like where your steps have been along the way before you came here to Steele High School.
Sure. So I wasn't one of those kids growing up that played teacher. Like I don't know. It wasn't when I didn't have my brothers sitting down and doing work for me or anything like that. I don't know. Something just kind of deep within me just kind of felt like it was something I could do. I had good teachers. I had some great English teachers at Plano East. I love them. One of them is actually a writer now and writes, curriculum. I have books of his in my classroom. He was my junior English teacher. Pretty amazing. Mr. Deegan is his name. But when I was in my senior year of high school, they had a class called Teaching Major Studies, which is like our education courses we have here. And we got to go off to schools and student teach and work with kids. So I thought, okay, I can do this. Went to TLU and obviously enrolled. So when I don't know if everyone knows this, if they followed the same track I did, but you major in English, then you specialize in education. So most of I really am an English major, and you have your specialty in the education courses, depending on how you go about doing it, I suppose. And so I had the education courses. I did my student teaching in Seguin at Seguin High School. And I actually will admit that when I was done with that year, I was like, I don't want to teach. Like, this isn't what I want to do. Oh my gosh. What have I done? I have nothing. I have no other skills. Like, what am I going to do? I'm an English major, but I'm not a writer. I can appreciate and analyze English, but oh no. And then I just kind of panicked and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? And then I had to get a job, and turns out I was qualified to teach. And so I started my master's degree, and I did some substitute teaching, and turns out I was pretty decent at it. And I was like, okay, never mind. All right, I'm good. I can do this. And so I got my first job in Sugar Land at Clements High School, the Clements Rangers. And I taught there. I say we collectively because of my husband. I taught there for, he was actually there for a year before me. And I remember substitute teaching, and one of the English teachers, maybe she was the department chair, walked by and she's like, so we have a substitute who can teach. I'm like, all right, then this makes me feel good. Okay. So they hired me on, and I was there for 4 years. That was out of the Houston area. And then
a little side note here. Actually, that's where I would have gone to high school had I lived with my dad.
Really?
Yep. So he lived in Sugar Land. Yep.
I will say that I think that area is really nice. It has exploded since we left in growth. I mean, just to drive down Highway 6, when we went back to go visit, took 30 minutes just to get down the highway. It has really grown. It's really grown. Kind of like Plano and Allen and Frisco area. That's what Sugar Land has done. It has grown exponentially. Anyways, we left there and then came here. And basically I was pregnant with my daughter when we came here to interview. And I had just had my daughter, and they called and offered both of us teaching positions at Clemens High School. And they said, but when Steele opens, you'll have to separate. We don't want you working together, which ended up not working. Maybe we should leave this part out, but that did not work. So then he came over here, Jeremy came over here and started the soccer program and was teaching math. And I stayed at Clemens for 1 year. And then a position for student council opened. And they didn't hire me to be the student council sponsor, but they kind of did. When I was interviewed, she says, I hear you've done student council before. And I thought, well, I did it for 1 year in Sugar Land, kind of as the other person. And I said, yeah, I have. And she said, oh, how'd you like to do it here? I said, okay, I don't know if I really am ready to take this on, but she showed me my classroom, and she showed me the student council office, which I know not everyone knows what it looks like, but it's a nice big room where we can put just about anything in. And I said, okay, I'll do this. And so here I am all of these years later. I'd say my job is just as much student council as it is teaching English. It's kind of turned into that.
Absolutely. So were you here then the second year?
The second year.
Okay. So then I said it earlier, 16 years. So
are we the same?
Yeah. So we both been here for 15 years.
Because my daughter is 16. Yes, you're right. I couldn't have been here 16 years because I was over there. So yeah, you're right.
So we came in together 2006. Yeah.
405, 05, 06. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Very good. I don't know why in my head I was thinking that you were here the first year, but you weren't.
No. When they brought people over or they hired people initially, they were kind of filling those positions of what they had. There was no senior class, that first year.
Right.
So then a lot of us, I think there's a good chunk of us that got hired that second year. Okay. And I actually didn't just teach seniors that year. I was teaching sophomores. I've taught sophomores and seniors on and off, mostly seniors now for the past maybe like 10 years or so, 9 years or so has been just seniors.
They all just kind of blend together, right?
It kind of does. It's a little disconcerting how easily you can forget.
Absolutely.
What years?
Well, this next question, we're going to go a little bit more deep into Courtney Matthews and what she believes about teaching. So, okay. It's one of those things where I think we all at some point were asked, why do you teach? I think some of us know exactly how to answer that question. Some of us may even have it written down. Some of us, it's like a stamp in our brain, and it's truly what you believe by. So I just want to know, why is it that you teach?
I think initially, so my answer earlier is initially why I taught is not why I'm still teaching, right? So initially why I taught was I can do this. I like what I'm doing. I've stayed teaching, and I don't have an answer stamped in my brain. I don't get asked this question much. Because I truly feel like if we have the right teachers in the classroom, we can impact the students in the right way. So if we have teachers, and I'd like to think that I'm one of them, that encourages students to think on their own, to problem solve, to look at things differently, to not give up, that we can prod them a little bit further, to think deeper beyond a question. I think if we keep enough of those people as our teachers, that we are, benefiting our society. And I love that engagement with students. I love watching them have that aha moment, or when they've been working on something and then finally I'm like, yes, this was right. And they're like, I did it right. Finally. Yeah. They're so excited when they've accomplished it. Or even, I mean, there was one year I gave out stickers to kids and they were so excited. I'm like, you guys are sophomores. They're like, but we got a sticker from Miss Matthews. So I think when you see that genuine, and when you catch those kids that are struggling and you pull them aside and you work with them and you see them show growth. I always say the hardest part about teaching seniors is that I lose them after a year. We make that connection in August and I, high five or hug on the way out the door in May. And it's a very painful thing, I think, for all teachers who just teach seniors because we haven't had a whole lot of time with them. But I think that's why I do it. I like to think that, that I have an impact on them. I'd like to think that I'm helping them grow, and especially with my subject, to look critically at what they're reading and what they're watching and what they're seeing and how it interacts with themselves and with other moments in history and all of that. So I'm not sure if it's not a very smooth answer.
Well, what I appreciate.
I should have known you were going to ask me that. Like that would have been like one that I should have had written down, like with a note card and reading, but I didn't.
Well, that's why I don't share the questions, right? Because I want them to be off the cuff and I want them not to be rehearsed. But what I hear from you is, or actually I should say what I did not hear from you is your content. You're not a teacher because you want to spew content to kids. You talked about relationships. You talked about connecting. You talked about being there for all kids. Right. And to me, and I agree, and that's what education's about. And that's kind of why, again, I want to do this kind of podcast for teachers, because nowhere in a textbook, and for those of you that are listening, please tell me, show me the book, show me the chapter that talks about building relationships is important for kids. It's about classroom management. It's about teaching styles. It's about working with your administration, and they give you all of these chapter by chapter how to be a teacher, but they fail to mention the importance of building relationships with kids before you teach them content. So sure. Definitely. So just kind of like real quick. So like you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll give you the opportunity to answer it. So what is your definition of success in your classroom?
Ooh, definition of success in my classroom would be watching the kids or having them achieve the next level. So I teach dual credit, and I've got a lot of kids who, like we've been reading assignments. I've only known them for a week, and I'm reading it. I'm like, that's really, really good. Okay, where can we take that to the next level, or how can we apply that? So for me, and then for some kids, success is kind of just elevating our level of writing, elevating our level of analysis, looking at something a little less superficially. So, and I know it's really hard. Sometimes it takes a while for me to figure out where everyone, fits in my, in your brain of watching them have a success. But again, for me, having that kid reach that moment, they go, oh, now I know how to do this. I can do this the right way. And for me, there isn't a right way. There's a way that's with more depth and more insight. And again, I teach English, so there are right ways, right, in many other subjects. But for me, it's not just looking at something at face value and discovering that you are capable of looking at something differently.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that your aha moment, your gratification as a teacher is when you see growth in your students, mm-hmm. Right?
Very much so.
Who is a teacher that you will always remember, and what made them so special?
Mrs. Griffin was my senior year teacher for English. I had great teachers. I can't really look back and have any complaints, but, and again, she's probably not watching this, so I can say, I remember students wanting to get out of her class because she was too hard. And I remember sitting in there and just loving her and being totally taken by her style. She was just like right off, kind of off the cuff, but also didn't allow us to make any excuses for ourselves. And I think she was the first teacher that, this is going to sound cheesy. I'm sure other teachers saw something in me, but she showed me that she saw something in me and put me in charge of a kind of a big discussion group in our class. And I'm like, you want me to do that? You want me to read this? And then if she had us like reading the book and having questions and then facilitating the discussion in the classroom. I mean, one student, I was like, but I'm just Courtney. Are you sure I'm the person you want? And it went well. And I remember being proud of myself afterwards. And I mean, and again, not to say that I was put down for 11 years of schooling, but this was, I think, the first time that a teacher maybe kind of picked me out of the group and said, you've got something a little special. Let's see what you can do with it. So yeah, she stands out to me for that reason.
So like, I really like asking this question because, you know, everyone's got a different answer and a different teacher name. And although I don't know your teacher and never will get to know that teacher, the point is to give the listeners some tools and strategies that maybe that they can use in the classroom. And so the more teachers I interview, hopefully we have, here's your English word, a plethora of tools and strategies to use in the classroom.
Right.
And so what I heard you say is that you appreciated your teacher because you as a student felt valued, you felt heard, right? And
yeah, absolutely. I felt like I could contribute in some way. And before I had just been a good student. You know, I would just do my work, good student, but maybe I had written something where she was like, oh, you know, maybe Courtney can lead this discussion. And so I think that, yeah, that made me feel special, you know?
And so imagine what that is like if we do that for every kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because not all kids are going to be academically successful in terms of getting 90s and 100s, but you can take that same student who is maybe a 60s student, but you bring them to a 70 because you believed in them. You gave them the opportunity, you gave them the platform, you gave them the pat on the back and said, my goodness, look at your growth, you know, and that's impactful. We may not see the results now. We may not, and you may not see the results because they're seniors in your classroom, but in my opinion, the successful moments are when they come back and they say thank you.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, I tell my students the first week of school, differently this year, obviously. I said, you will never walk out my door thinking that I don't value you and don't like you. I said, don't ever, I never want there to be a moment. If you've ever felt that moment, then I need to know about it. Like if you've ever felt like there was a moment where something wasn't jiving in this class, that you didn't feel comfortable. You know, I said, I care for each one of you. Sometimes that caring is writing all over your essay and telling you all the different ways that you could improve, because then the next time we're going to look for those same new improvements the next time around. And so hopefully they take that, you know, to value. And I will say as a side note, because I know both of us work with students outside of our classroom, you know, with the extra, you with sports and with HOSA, with sports, basketball and HOSA. But for me, for student council, I see the same thing. I watch these kids grow from freshmen to seniors, and the more I give them more responsibility. And it's the same thing. So even when we're in charge of our students groups or our athletes, finding something special in each of those kids where they feel valued. We made a pledge several years ago in a summer conference I went to my student council officers with. And I said, I want everyone in our meeting to feel like they have value during the meeting. We're not going to talk at them. We're going to talk with them. We're going to have them give their ideas and their suggestions, and then we're going to use them and we're going to apply them. And it's not like that's a really hard concept, but I think we get so caught at talking at people that we're not always talking with them or even listening, you know? And so I think we make that conscious effort to listen to our kids and listen to that need that they have, whether it's in a classroom or whether it's, obviously, I think student groups are really important. I mean, that's a huge part of my other part of my job. I think, yeah, listening and yeah, finding value in them and their ideas and then just their presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with, you know, and I don't want to digress in this area, but, you know, with suicide rates and things like that, you know, why does that kind of stuff happen? And a lot of times it's because kids are not valued and they're not seen and they're not heard. Right?
That's why what's happening now and what happened in the spring was especially painful, to know that there's a lot of kids where they're getting their guidance and their love, and their comfort is coming to school. Maybe not their peers,
right?
But I make sure that there are certain kids that I make sure I ask them about their weekend. I ask them what they were doing. I asked them how a certain event went, because I know that maybe no one else has asked them about that and no one else has noticed it. Heck, even a new hairstyle you try to comment on, you know, because sometimes those kids get lost get lost in the corner of the room, and we are the ones that, pull them in and care for them.
We should be.
True.
And that's kind of the challenge too here, is that, with teachers, we all come from different walks of life too. And I think sometimes, not that we are or have to, but sometimes we're a byproduct of what we grew up with. And we're a byproduct of maybe who taught us how to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even in sports or even in teaching, you learn how to do your job by learning from what not to do, right? And so until they hear it, until they see it, until hopefully they listen to this kind of conversation, hopefully with what you say and with what I say can kind of open someone's eyes and ears to, wait a minute, there's a common theme here at Steele High School with certain teachers that they have a belief about building relationships and connections, and there's more to education than spewing content. Wait a minute, but I've been spewing content for the last 4 years or 9 years or 12 years. Wait a minute, I'm the outlier, right? Everyone else is doing it this way. Let me go talk to so-and-so, right?
And that's what's so great about when we do those, what are they, focused walkthroughs? Am I saying the right thing?
Yeah.
Where we go and I can't, but then it's throwing my brain off. When we go and walk around the teachers' classrooms, and while, yes, we're giving up our conference period to go do it, I really enjoy those. And going and watching someone else, even if it's only 10 minutes, we would go and watch them in their element. And I'd be like, ooh, look how they have their classroom set up, and look what they have on their wall, and look at how they're praising students, and look at how they, how they did that question. Oh, that's their bell ringer at the beginning. That's pretty cool. Maybe that's something I should try. And it was only a few times. I mean, we've only done those a few times, but I got a lot out of them. I think they're really neat.
No, I definitely agree. All right. So kind of talking about relationships. So you can answer this question. It's like a 2-part question. Do you think that relationships should be at the center of teaching? If so, how, and you kind of talked about this already. If so, how do you personally keep relationships at the center of teaching in your classroom?
I mean, yes, relationships are key. Yes, that's in the center. I guess that's kind of a hard question for me to answer, because I do feel like it's really important. I want my kids to understand what I'm teaching, and hopefully by building relationships with them, I'm making them want to know what I'm teaching more. I want them to want to come into my room because what I'm teaching them is of value, and that I'm finding a way to make it applicable to their lives and what they're experiencing. And so by doing that, I have to build relationships. We have to kind of know what they've got going on in their world. And I also think that, every kid has a story, and sometimes analyzing Beowulf was the least thing that they could possibly have focused on last night, because they had something else going on in their lives. And so I think if you build a relationship with a student, they'll feel more comfortable to say to you, look, my mom was in the hospital all last night, and there was no way I could get your assignment done. And obviously that falls in the extenuating circumstances category. I think we'd all believe that, but you have to have a student feel comfortable enough with you to talk to you about it. Or have that student that came up to me years ago and had me read a poem about wanting to commit suicide. I was so glad that she felt like I was a person that she could talk to about it. Or I have the girl that comes running in my room and she's weeping and crying, and then we stand outside the door and we talk about the breakup with the boyfriend. I mean, these things are important, and it makes them want to be in my room. And then it also hopefully makes them want to learn my material and become better students, educated citizens of society, right? All of that, I feel like, kind of grows upon relationships.
So you said something there. You said, when you've got a girl coming into your class and she's crying, and you take the time to step outside the classroom and speak with her, but you have a lesson plan to do. You have content to get to, and you've got kids that need to take a test at the end of the year. So why take that time to talk to her out in the hallway?
Because I don't want to lose her. I don't think any of us want to lose a student. And I don't mean loser like. Right. I got you. I mean, I don't want to lose her as someone who knows that she has someone she can confide in. If we're good teachers, we have sort of a system in place for the year, and the kids have expectations. And so never would I be able to step outside my door and talk to a student while obviously still maintaining contact with my classroom. My kids aren't going crazy. They're working on what they're supposed to be working on. And that's not to say that everybody has that luxury. I mean, we all have different classroom dynamics and different types of students in our room. But I feel like those kids, you've taught them, you've respected them in the class, they're going to respect you back. And sometimes that conversation takes 30 seconds. Sometimes it's just allowing them to go down to the bathroom and clean themselves up. Sometimes it's just talking about going to a counselor. Sometimes that's me stepping back in, starting class, getting everything going, and then stepping back outside and offering some tissues and some motherly, 43-year-old woman advice that sometimes is not applicable at all. So, but I think no matter what, you've shown them that you care.
And you know what I find so important in this, again, giving teachers tools and strategies for themselves in the classroom is when and I'm just like you, these little drama queens that we have walking the halls, like they want our attention, and I'm one of those that's going to give it to them. And it's not that I'm like wanting to like give them all the attention in the world, but just like you, just letting them know you care. You know what I'm saying? But here's the kicker. When you step outside of the classroom to talk to that student, male or female, whatever the situation is, the rest of your classroom experienced what you just did for one child,
right.
Which means now your classroom looking at you out in the hallway, even though they're working,
right.
They know without you saying a word that you care about her, you care about her well-being, so that when that opportunity presents itself that they're dealing with something in life, now they have built that trust without you even saying a word to them, but because they experienced what you did for someone else.
And I think there's a key to also paying attention to, kind of feeding on that, the dynamics of other students in the room and knowing who is connected to whom and who works well with whom. So I'll have a student in my class that's in tears. We'll make eye contact. Sometimes I'll walk by and I'll just put a sticky note on the desk and say, "Do you need to be excused to go to the restroom?" They just kind of look at you like they didn't even want to come up to you and ask because they're so embarrassed or whatever. They get up and leave, and I'll look at her friend. I'm like, "Go with her. Go check on her. Let's go see how she's doing." Sometimes that student will come back and get the bag for the nurse or whatever it might be. But I think also paying attention to those other dynamics in the room make it easier for you to sometimes do those little helpful moments with kids when they want to go.
Yeah, totally. I do the same exact thing, and it's intentional. I mean, first of all, you have to know. Let me back up here. You just said that when you see a kid struggling, you make eye contact with that kid, which means you've already acknowledged them. Now you've acknowledged their friend. How did you know that they were friends? Well, it's because you got to know your kids.
Right.
So once again, now you're giving the friend a platform, and you're modeling and teaching that when someone needs help, you go help them. So you're not only showing them through your actions as a teacher stepping out in the hallway, but now you're allowing kids to do the same thing that you're doing.
Right. Whatever we're working on isn't more important than making sure that kid is okay. Like we can figure it out. We can figure out whatever pop quiz you're not taking or whatever, beginning assignment, we'll get you caught up. But I want to make sure that kid is okay. I mean, that's kind of part of why we do it, right?
That's powerful. And I think that's the message that I want to convey.
Right.
All right. So here we go. If you could thank any teacher here at Steele High School, who would that teacher be and why? Past or present, I don't care.
Past or present. Okay. She's probably expecting this, but that's okay. I'll give her what she expects. So I do a lot of student activity stuff, right? We know we know this, right? And there's a lot that I do on my own. There's some events like homecoming. Oh, this is tough because now I've got two people. Anyways, I've got I put on homecoming and I'll put on other events. And then Jana Mahoney entered my world, and I had someone who was like me. She's a little more kind-hearted than I am in general. She's got just a different level of heart than I do. And I love that she came to the school and she was like, "Hey, my pals can do stuff with you. Hers is a class, which is amazing because she can have those kids work on some things. And then I have my student council meetings, once a week. And so we've worked together, and she's come up with ideas, and we have sat and brainstormed with each other. It has been great for me. And I know that's not this isn't an academic person that's helping me, but this is student council obviously is a huge part of my work here at Steele. And she has made that, she's become a sounding board. She's become someone who's listened to me, and we've complained together. We've rejoiced together. Actually, we have checks of almost $10,000 to go deliver to two service organizations this next week from last spring. And we do these. It's just kind of it's helped me grow as a student activities leader, because I think sometimes it's overwhelming to do it by yourself. And I'm doing student council alone, but she is someone that I know that I can say, hey, does your group want to help me out with this? Absolutely. Or she even comes up, she came up and helped me out to film the videos for Fish Camp. She didn't need to. That's something to do with pals. She didn't have to do it. It wasn't one of her responsibilities, but she came and did it anyway. So, and she's come up and she's helped me set up for homecoming dances. She didn't need to. It's not her job description, but she's a friend. That's it's like, and it's not just a teacher friend, she's a friend. And so I think I appreciate her for that. And then I could obviously go on about many people, but I think that I think she's been a big part of that element of my teaching experience here at Steele, the student council part.
So you said something there that I really like. She's not just a teacher friend, she's a friend. Mm-hmm. And Courtney, I'm at the beginning of putting out this teacher podcast, right? But you just said what my purpose is for this podcast. Aww. Right? No, I'm serious, because I think sometimes, and it's kind of a question I put in here, but you've kind of already answered it, so I'm not going to go there. But people always ask me what it's like to teach at Steele. And I feel so weird sometimes answering that question, because my answer is so biased because I've been here for 15 years. But this is truly a magical place. It is a great place to be.
Right.
But when you have conversations with other people from other schools, other school districts, I don't hear that same answer. And so when it goes back to, and you go back to Mary Pivito, you go back to Mike Wolfarth, and now Janice Cervantes, we have as a staff embraced and embodied what it's like to be a friend to our colleagues. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people here that are very introverted and they stick to themselves. But collectively as a staff, you have people like Jana Mahoney, who is coming to your rescue to be your not teacher friend, to be a friend. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what I'm trying to get with education. Our job as educators is not to spew content, but it's to build relationships and have connections to kids before the content, so that when the content comes, they trust us enough that we're going to be there for them when they don't understand the content.
Right.
But it can't be for teachers to students without it being teachers to teachers.
Oh, it's amazing how, I have heard from so many teachers who have come here from other places, and this is not specific to any place they've come to. They're like, I have gotten so much help from my fellow team. I'm like, well, just ask so-and-so. I'll give you all my stuff. Like, if someone would join my senior team and they were new, I just copy a file over. I'm like, here's everything I've been doing for 10 years. Have it. Use or lose, whatever it is you want to do. And there's schools that people go to where they hoard their stuff. And they're like, no, I created this. I'm like, you go do your own work. I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't that what this is all about? You know how many times I'm looking on the internet trying to find really great sources? That's what we're doing, is we're sharing and we're finding. And I think we've created, I think you're right, a community here where I'd be happy to help you out with whatever you're working on. And I know a lot of people, I'm staged in the math department. My English room is in the math department, and I'll walk down the hall and ask them for help, and they come down with me. We're working on a new platform for dual credit, which is Canvas. And Miss Barnes and I have been going back and forth trying to figure out how to accomplish things. And it's been great. We don't teach the same subject, but I totally could count on her, and I'd hope that she thinks she could count on me. So
absolutely,
do the best I can. Not always perfect and not always right, but I mean, I think anyone would do their best effort. I mean, to help anyone else out here. I can't imagine there's not a single person on this campus, honestly, that I could say that I could not turn to and say, I need your help, and that they would ever turn me away. There's not a single person I know, not one, not one. So. And
it's so weird because I can't even say it's weird. I just wish that more schools and districts that have schools can be like us, you know, and it's just one of those things where I think we're all in it for the right reasons, and we're always eager to help each other out because we're all in this together. Right. And that's kind of my message right now to even our students. And I just put together like a 7-minute video for tomorrow's lesson for my kids. And I'm kind of scratching what I was planning on doing tomorrow, because after listening to kids answer some questions that I've had them do on a flip grid, like I'm just emotional about it. And I'm moved to respond to their responses, right, and let them know that, you know what, teachers are struggling right now. We are stressed out right now. So what you're dealing with as a student, it's not a student, you're a human being.
Right.
I'm a teacher, but I'm a human being. And right now humans are struggling with this. We're in this together. Let's just make the best of it. So, but
it's hard. I mean, but it's hard to imagine someone else struggling like as much as you are with the same thing. And it's like, no, we all are. This is hard for everyone. This is not just a you thing. This is not just a me thing. This is definitely an us thing. And I mean, there's a whole other broader, longer discussions that you could have about, treating other people and all that business. But yeah, I mean, I think when we look and realize that there are other people who are out there that can help us and that we want to help them, isn't that what it's kind of all about?
That is what it's all about, right?
So, yeah.
Well, we're sitting right at almost an hour, so that's the end. But again, I just want to say thank you for participating in this. I don't know where this is all going to go, but I will tell you this: that when I first came up with this idea, and I kind of shared that with you too, that I was like, all right, who's going to be my first guest? And it took asking myself that question. I answered it within a second. Oh. I was like. Courtney Matthews, like, duh, like, why would you need to go anywhere else, right? But here's why I decided to do that. And I think I've sent you a message at one point before, or when people send these like cookie gram kind of things or whatever, like, I think I may have slipped one over to you one time, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I've been here for 15 years. I've been here with you for 15 years. And yes, I do HOSA. Yes, I do clinical rotations. Yes, I do basketball. Like, I do a lot of stuff, right? But you never cease to amaze me and motivate me and make me a better person and a better teacher and a better sponsor. Because when I look at all the things that you do for this campus, and I get stressed out with all the things that I have to do, and I'm like, but if Courtney Matthews can do it, if Courtney Matthews is hanging up that banner, if Courtney Matthews is setting up homecoming, if Courtney Matthews is doing this, and it's always like, all the things that you do put me in check. And I'm like, no, if Courtney Matthews can do it, I know I can. So I get rid of my pity party, and I'm like, no, Courtney Matthews. And I'm serious, and I really mean that. So you have inspired me, and you have empowered me as a teacher and as a coach. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's way flattering. Sometimes the water's here and I'm about here, but I really appreciate that sentiment. There's a lot of people on campus that do a lot of things, and I have the pleasure of getting to work with a lot of people, and I think we both collectively have the pleasure of working with some of Steele's most amazing kids too. We've got some great kids. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have the rest of your day is blessed as always.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Courtney Matthews.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Keeping Up with the Knights. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you subscribe and click the notification button so you know when the next episode is released, and then share it with your friends and colleagues. If you're so inclined to do so, would you please rate and review this podcast to help me grow our community of listeners? I hope there was something that you heard today that allowed you to connect outside the classroom. Now, more than ever, we need each other as a support system, and we need to continue to make this the best high school in the state of Texas. Thank you, Knight Nation. Now, go be someone's champion today.